Okay, welcome to the PhoneWord Workshops session on Thursday, September the 24th, 2020. It is 9 a.m. Arizona time, which is also 9 a.m. Pacific time. And we have these sessions every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific or 9 a.m. Arizona time. They're short sessions, and we basically go over a different dimension or different aspect of the PhoneWord Workshops global directory. And this morning we're going to be taking a look at how can we use this decentralized peer-to-peer construct to create consistency among the messages that we're sending one another via this platform. And this came up, we had a conversation last night at the Desert Blockchain monthly session, and somebody was asking about, well, how are you assured that you're getting all the messages? And we're going to cover that today. This is also an important point for the difference between this and relying upon a centralized service like Twitter or Facebook or that sort of thing, where we rely upon them to keep all the messages, in order, intact, and so forth. So, Randy, anything you want to say about all that before I get into
Yeah,
it?
actually, my audio is on, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw in the news, it was either Monday or Tuesday. I don't know if it was the White House or if it was the Justice Department, but filed some suits against many of the large technology companies related to their controlling of data. And I'm not sure how close you follow the market, but this latest sell-off, some of the market pundits, who knows if they're right or not, but are attributing some of this big sell-off we had yesterday and 3 days ago, to the point that for a long time now, and they had the hearings about 6-8 months ago, the government is concerned about how much data these large corporations actually control related to our personal lives. So this is a very timely concept you're presenting here. I like it.
Great. Well, so let's just talk a little bit about those dimensions of what's going on. And this is a worldwide phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to that, I just read a headline, and I don't know really what's behind it. So I'll couch my comments that, this is unconfirmed and so forth. But I also saw that Facebook is thinking about shutting down its operations in Europe. So imagine that you are a Facebook user in Europe, and for whatever reason, you're unable to access, your accounts and so forth. All the data that you have been building, over whatever period of time you've been using Facebook, that may not be available to you. And the same thing holds true with the users of TikTok and WeChat in the United States, where as of last Sunday, there was a threat of both of those, at least to some degree, being rendered unavailable. So,
and in relation to TikTok, sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
In relation to TikTok, it even got to the point where the White House and Congress kind of sort of backs it, but they haven't. I never really saw any official statement from Congress, but the White House was adamant that TikTok needs to be sold, and ByteDance, I believe, is the Chinese company that owns it. They have to divest. And so now we had Microsoft, Walmart, Apple, several different companies, and now it ended up weird. There's a weird congruence of Oracle and Walmart seem to be the two that are kind of taking it over. I want to go back to another comment. You brought up a very good point. This is ironic that Europe, in this realm, the European Union and several countries within, I know Germany and UK, have been very progressive in individuals' rights related to data on the internet. In fact, they have a law that is progressive to the point that no one can, and I don't know how it's enforced, but supposedly no corporation can acquire data from you in the form that we do, that we see it happening all the time, unless you explicitly say, yes, you can have that data. So their laws are much more progressive than the United States and many of the other countries. So I think that this whole construct of an idea that data ownership, corporate, central versus decentral versus individual, is right at the forefront of how society is literally dictating where technology is going to be going in the next 20 years. Because I mean, this is a huge fight, and obviously, you know, I don't really espouse myself to be in any political party, but if you were to pin me, it would probably be libertarian. Not as progressive on the illicit drug use and all that, but as far as most of the other ideas of the platform, I'm pretty libertarian, small government, individual freedoms, etc. And I think this is, I think we're going to look back and we talked about, I'll say this in my last comment. We had a desert blockchain on-site workshop earlier this year, and we talked about the recap for 2019. One of the things I brought up that I think was huge, well, two things. The one was Libra opened up a wide can of worms, and I think this is all part of that. The second piece was this whole concept of space travel. I think those two themes are still at the height and the forefront of where the world and the universe is going in the next 100 years at least.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, and so let's take one of the last points you made, which is both space travel as well as our communication networks.
Yep.
Moving into space. That further blurs the definitions and boundaries of legacy sovereignties and jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And that's part of the dimensions that we're dealing with here. But excuse me. Let's go back to what I believe you were talking about in Europe, which is the GDPR, the General Data Protection Rights, I think is what it stands for. So not only are those, creating some rules and regulations that are, hard, maybe not so clear as to how they're going to work and how they're going to be enforced, but they also set up a set of penalties, financial penalties that are, at least in my view, onerous, if not possibly devastating. So, I don't quite remember the specifics, but it's a sizable portion of like gross revenues can be assessed against companies that violate this GDPR rules and regulations. And by the way, California has also instituted something similar. So, I don't think we really know how those are going to be enforced at this point. But imagine a scenario where it's deemed that, Google, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, has violated GDPR, and certain penalties are assessed, and potentially those penalties could be fatal to those companies. And then now all of a sudden you've got a vector or an incentive set that could actually, if not add to the Facebook notion that, hey, we're going to pull out of Europe, if they can do that, but it could be such that it could actually bring the companies down. And then the same result happens to users of Facebook, Google, Twitter, name your social media entity. They might not be able to utilize their data. And even if you can download your data, you still don't have the framework to consume that data, nor do you have the network dimensions of the data that we've all created, assuming that our communities was going to be able to see it, use it, comment on it, all that stuff. So it's very uncertain as to how this is all going to play out, but clearly we are at a colliding point where we have these technological constructs that are clashing and colliding with a set of objectives and goals. And I'm not saying anything right or wrong about this. I'm just saying that there is a collision that's happening. And that's part of what we're exploring with the PHONEWORD Workshops Global Directory, this peer-to-peer mesh networking, and what we're going to go over in a bit. But how might we be able to create something with this global directory, with this peer-to-peer mesh network, that might be able to address some of these centralized data constructs that are all becoming a key part of our lives right now?
And you might, I hope you don't mind, I'd like to paint it with a big broad brush. This theme is really globalism and collectivism and corporatism versus individual and sovereignty and ability to maintain borders and your own rights and your own individuality. That's the theme that's clearly being broached here. And I'm curious that I'll have to read the story about Facebook, that they're more concerned about the potential fines, that they're willing to just abandon it rather than trying to adapt to or adopt their policies to address the issue. They don't, sounds interesting that if you characterized it, if it's that simplistic, they decided it's not worth the effort. So that's interesting.
Well, we don't know, but let's go ahead and take a look at a little presentation that I've prepared today. I'll screen share, and then we can, I would like to keep this under 30 minutes.
Sure.
If possible. So, okay, so. Let me see if I can get this full screen here. It's still loading. Sorry about the delay on this. Ironically, I'm actually using Google Docs for this presentation. So. Okay, so the topic today is message consistency, because what we're using is a peer-to-peer network, and we're doing messaging primarily right now using Raspberry Pis, which is a small board computer. And the benefits of that is that we're messaging with one another without any kind of data surveillance. So we control our communications, our connections. Now, it's not totally private, mind you, because basically anybody can join our messaging topics, our channel topics, but at least we have an ability to notice that somebody else has joined these messaging topics at this point. And it's my understanding that we have an opportunity to create some private messaging networking using what we're about to go over. So those are some of the benefits, and we're using something called Canaries, or at least I'm using a Canary, which is a Raspberry Pi set up with a screen and so forth. But here's some of our past presentations that I won't go over in detail right now, but we do have these sessions every Thursday. This is a glimpse of basically the channels that we're using to communicate. And this one right here, this 1111 PHONEWORD Workshops is the channel that I'm going to show like right now. So let's go over to that. So this is a screen where basically on the left side I've got two of our peers running, and over on the right side I'm going to be putting in some messages, and you'll see how that messaging happens, and then we'll take a look at how that's being captured. So this is the command to subscribe to a particular channel. In this case, it's 1111 PHONEWORD Workshops. I'm going to just hit enter there. I'm going to this other peer, and you can tell it's a different peer because it has a different IP address. So that is the command to subscribe to this channel that's titled 1111 PHONEWORD Workshops. Now over here, I'm going to put in a command, starts with bash, and then publish, and then I'll say hello Randy, and I'll just hit enter, and voila, over on the left side you can see that that message along with some identifying information has appeared over here on the in the messaging topics. And then I'll go to this next peer and I'll put in, and I know that this, for somebody looking at this might look rather technical, and it is, but this is just the beginning of our messaging platform, peer-to-peer, and it will be cleaned up and have a more user-friendly interface in fairly short order. So here you can see from a totally separate peer, we are now messaging over here, and now Randy's added his own message, and this can happen globally. We can be messaging with basically anybody anywhere in the world that is subscribed to this topic. And now what we're going to take a look at, and we'll look at it over on this pane, and I'm going to stop the split. I'm going to go to a single terminal mode here. So let's go to this. Okay, so now what I'm going to show is how these messages are being captured. because when you've got a peer-to-peer construct like this, peers can be part of and disappear from this channel because of networking issues, because of equipment failure and whatever. That's a difference between this peer-to-peer architecture and a centralized architecture like the social media that we're accustomed to. So what we're doing is we are capturing these messages within a file on each peer. So let's see, I think it's P, no, L, no. Hang on, I'm gonna have to. So this is, oh, lowercase p. So if we do this, okay, there we go. And then we do this, and I know that this is convoluted as well. If we open this file on this particular peer, you can see we have a history of our conversations and our messages from today. And then if we go over to this other peer and we do a similar type command, and again, I'm going to have to refer to, this is capital YT. Okay, 9, 4. And we hit enter. Now you can see we've got 2 separate independent peers from anywhere in the world that are capturing some or all of this messaging that's occurring. And part of our opportunity with this construct is to start to achieve what's called eventual consistency among these peers, meaning that we need to mash these messages together and distribute that to all the peers that have been part of that conversation. And voila, we have achieved a way for us to control our own data without it being in a central server. So I'm going to just quickly go through the rest of the presentation. We will be adding videos, websites, and books to further the education on the PHONEWORD Workshops global directory. The Canary that we're using uses public keys and certain hardware, and you don't necessarily have to use the Canary devices in order to participate in this. This is our channel that we're using. We do plan to provide a marketplace with a listing service where, as a participant in this, you will be able to create your own channels and then either develop those channels or put the identifiers for those channels on the marketplace. And who's eligible right now is HackFS participants, and that was an event that occurred from July to August, as well as Desert Blockchain citizens. And do want to caution everybody, this is an experimental project. All listings are subject to change. Use this at your own risk, and this is for educational purposes. And there is no emergency 911 services associated with this. We have it, or Desert Blockchain has introduced this 60-day money-back guarantee on any kind of a Canary equipment that's purchased through Desert Blockchain LLC, and that offer is good through December 31st. So here's how you can contact PHONEWORD Workshops, and that's the end of our presentation. I'll stop screen sharing. So, yeah. So any questions about that, Randy, or comments?
No, the only comment is, again, as with any form of communication, putting yourself out there in public, just be careful what you say, what you do, because you just never know what's going to be recorded. And as you're mentioning here, I like this, is that the intention is to record this data so that it can be managed and used in the future. But the best thing about this, it can be controlled at in a decentralized format, and it won't be some corporation, that has the rights to this data. It'll be, individual.
Yeah, that's a great point, is that because this is like a community, part of this construct, and we don't have that documented yet, but there will be like a dispute resolution process, somewhat akin to like Wikipedia, where anybody can post anything on Wikipedia,
Yeah.
but the maintainers of Wikipedia have the ability to add, delete that content, and there is a record, a history of those changes that's part of each Wikipedia topic. So I think that's a model that we can start to emulate, be inspired by, and so forth on this. So anyway.
And having been involved for a while now with you, Jay, I'm excited to see progress and all these new applications and opportunities for us to create this and expand it.
Cool. All right, just to show you what a Canary looks like for anybody watching the recording, this is a version, an early version of a Canary, and we'll be talking about that more in the future. What's within that is something, this is a Raspberry Pi, which is a small board computer, and we've done some sessions on Raspberry Pis. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording. We are under 30 minutes, and tune in next week when we'll be doing another session on Thursday at 9 a.m. So thank you for your time and attention. Goodbye.